Hi, welcome to the Geeks Week podcast. I'm Whoosh.
I'm Paul.
This is Zach.
And I'm Andrew. And the podcast does not contain spoilers for Game of Thrones.
That's something that I don't really want to talk about right now because I did the whole thing with Westworld and talking to people online and stuff, and I literally all the stuff basically figured out for me within like 4 episodes. So I'm just going to enjoy this as it is, and then we'll have sort of a season wrap up when that's done here. This podcast is actually going to be about game genres and what does that mean and how does that influence the way someone sees a game, the way a game gets reviewed, and the way a game is designed. So I think everybody's kind of familiar with what a genre is, what a genre does. It sort of gives you a quick snippet of some expectations you can have on the thing. In this case, again, we're talking about games. So you have something like, okay, that's an RPG. Well, you have, just as an example, you have Skyrim and The Witcher 3. Yes, they're both role-playing games, but they're both vastly, vastly different from each other. There's actually not a lot of similarities, aside from the open world, which The Witcher 3 isn't even really truly open world, and the fact that you can customize your character, and even that varies. So what is it? I mean, do you guys have a particular genre or genres that you actually enjoy, or you're sort of more disposed to playing than any others?
I think RPGs.
That's what I was going to say.
If I was going to play one genre only, it'd be RPG.
And what do you think it is? Because both you guys said RPG. Andrew hasn't said anything yet. I'm not sure what he's doing. His is probably going to be like whatever anime stuff. But so what is it about RPGs versus anime RPGs? Okay. Mine would probably be RPG as well. Just if I had to only pick one.
Well, it obviously covers a wide variety. Even though it's the same style, it covers a lot of different, ways of playing a game or styles of stories. Or
so, do you think
games
RPG
like
is
that,
Oh, sorry.
Games like that, they always seem a little less complete than other genres, but that's because they fill it with so much content that it's hard to finish. That's kind of what draws me into those, is because there's just so much to do. Whereas with a shooter or an RTS, you can do kind of one thing.
So now, bringing that up, the amount of content, because that's actually perfect. That's a great thing to talk about. So, right, your traditional RPG is, I mean, almost infinite, really. You have something like Skyrim or even Fallout with its Fallout 4, with its Radiant Quest. You're technically never done. You can play that indefinitely. You'll never complete them all because the quests just respawn. But what about something like, because RPGs, I don't know if there's any multiplayer RPG that I can think of. I mean, there's multiplayer games with RPG elements.
There's MMOs.
Yes, that's true, but that's that's a whole different genre. It's got its, come on, it's got its own tag, dude. It's completely different. But so what about games like you mentioned, first-person shooters or RTSs? They usually have an online component. In fact, most of the time, that's the biggest part of them. Wouldn't that be considered indefinite in a sense as well?
That's kind of what gives them replayability, I think, is the fact that you can play online with your friends.
It's sort of different because it's online modes and shooters are content that can be played over and over again, but it's not more content.
But I mean, yes, I get that. But don't you? I'm not trying to argue against you guys. Like I don't agree with you. I'm just trying to play the other side. So, but I mean, don't you think that at some point, even if you're doing different quests, I mean, think about The Witcher 3. There's a whole bunch of those Witcher contracts. But isn't that more or less the same thing over and over again? Talk to these people, maybe, go to this area, hold down the left trigger or whatever it is on the mouse, sniff some stuff, look at some stuff, run a couple times, kill the monster.
That's probably why I didn't beat The Witcher yet.
So is that,
but
what's...
the monster's different.
Well, that's true, but, the maps are different, the people you play against are different, the people you play with are probably different.
Well, going back to shooters... Just for like Halo as an example, there's only so many different ways you can attack a base before you've done them all.
But does it get boring? Is that
it
I guess?
doesn't get boring just because it doesn't get boring because you only control what you do. You don't determine what the enemy does. So that kind of makes every game different.
So it's
But,
the human element then, the unpredictability of a human player versus a pre-programmed computer.
Yeah, that's what gives shooters replayability. What I like about RPGs though is that you're basically like making a person that you play as in these games, whereas a shooter you might be able to customize your armor or even just your color, but you're actually like, I mean, you're playing a role, you're making a character. It's just kind of fun to me to do that.
So how how varied do you like your character creation or system in your game? Because obviously you have something like the Elder Scrolls that's has a huge variety in obviously your race, the different look your character can have on top of the different skills and abilities that you have access to, as well as the choices you can make in the game, versus something like The Witcher where the entire look of your character is completely predefined. The only thing you can do is cut his hair, at least in The Witcher 3, and obviously change the armor up. So how does that fall in? Because again, we're talking about the same genre.
Tattoo in The Witcher 2.
Well, right, but again, we're talking about bigger differences. But remember, we're talking about the same genre right now. And this is, huge variance in the amount of things that you can do.
I feel like the more in-depth the character creator, the better, but I can see why games like The Witcher need to have just a default character to play as. But honestly, The Witcher I thought was going to be a lot better than it really was. I'm not saying it's a bad game, but it's just like, some of the quests get repetitive, and I don't know. It's an old school RPG to me, and I don't exactly like that over the more modern RPGs that are coming out. Just the way that you gather items and the way you craft, it just feels like old school RPG stuff.
So when you say modern, you're thinking of something like a Bethesda.
I'd like to say
Yeah,
this
more
is blasphemy.
action-oriented
Witcher 3 is Game of the Year.
Wait, what'd you say, Andrew?
I'd like to say this is blasphemy. Witcher 3 is Game of the Year.
I think because I had actually stopped playing it after, I don't know, it's probably 20 hours. That's, you say 20 hours and that's not much of the content in there, or well less than half. But I think if you go into it with this mindset of sort of like your Bethesda or Western RPG, it's not going to be as enjoyable. But if you can let go of that, it becomes much better. Because you're right, and even Bethesda games get fairly boring. Those are more about... Bethesda has this thing where there's not a lot of content that they've pre-done for you. It's a lot of you make your own story. You make your character and then you do shit. Whereas The Witcher is much more of a guided, not on the rails, but much more narrowed down sort of, okay, this is the world. You can't go everywhere because there's massive mountains that you can't climb even with a horse. It's much more constrained. And I get what you're saying. It definitely feels like an older school RPG, but I don't think when they designed it that they said this is what we're going to do. It just sort of happened with what they wanted to do with the game. Because they're based off of books, actually very well written books. I've read most of them now. So you have this, it's already based in this sort of story, narrative novel setup. Versus the Elder Scrolls, which is all about you basically creating the story and then telling other people about it. Paul, you haven't talked in a while. What the heck?
I'm listening.
Well, you gotta say stuff sometimes, because it's all Zach.
Going to that guided kind of a thing with RPGs, I didn't like how Fallout 4 kind of did that with your character, because no matter what angle you played the game, you were just a concerned father trying to find your son at the end of the day.
That's true. And
I would have preferred it if it was just a more, be whatever kind of character you want. I felt like they took out a lot of the evil options because of the kind of person that you are in the start of the game.
And yes, that's one thing that I've heard before, and that I agree with, and that you are much more constrained in sort of the type of character you can play. And I wonder if that's Bethesda maybe trying something new when it comes to the way that things are set up, because it definitely felt like the world wasn't as fun to explore as something like Skyrim or even Oblivion, which I actually think Oblivion might be the single best map game world that I've ever come across. Just in terms of how fun it was to just go out and just do stuff. Just random things. But remember, we're still talking about the same genre. I mean, this is a whole discussion on literally 2 games that are, by and large, I mean, just straight up
3.
RPGs. Well, but I'm talking, we're mostly doing Skyrim and The Witcher 3. But this is just an RPG. These are RPGs. These are the same genre.
Well, and I was thinking about Kingdom Hearts. That's an RPG.
See, I think the JRPG kind of is its own genre because the differences are very stark versus something like your Western RPG. Because in JRPGs, one, you have a party all the time. You always have a party. Western RPGs, not so much. JRPGs are almost always turn-based. Final Fantasy 15, not, but they are almost always turn-based. And they're much more linear than sort of your Western RPGs, where it's much more, it's not about the openness, it's about the journey for them. And they're, I mean, stupid long stories. But yeah, again, that's another perfect example. But I feel JRPG is different enough to where it's easily its own genre, as opposed to a subset, because it's not like there's a hierarchy. We can go, okay, from RPG you have these variances, and then somewhere in there is going to be JRPG. There's not a lot in common between an RPG and a JRPG. We just call them that because, well, it sounds cool, but I mean, there's some customization.
Well,
options.
really, all RPGs, they're more similar.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I guess the RPG genre has evolved and JRPGs have... I mean, not that they haven't changed or that's somehow a bad thing, but they seem to be a bit more consistent in what they're going to offer you. A really grind-heavy game, some kind of mystical quest with magic, whatever. I'm just kidding, but... But no, that's another perfect example of again, the variances within a genre or a very similar genre. And I mean, even first-person shooters. You have Halo and Call of Duty and Battlefield. Those are all first-person shooters, all vastly different. Halo is a much more arena-style, slower time to kill, although it seems much faster in Halo 5 than the previous ones, but still much slower than something like Call of Duty, which is basically just this run-and-gun, 2-shot kill kind of. I don't even know if... Is there even like Halo's an arena shooter, sort of first-person shooter. Is there something for Call of Duty? Like a term for that? Military shooter. But Battlefield, couldn't you consider that one? And that's vastly different as well. I mean, I'm talking about something with a really quick time to kill.
Well, that's the basic distinction, is the military shooter between the arena shooter.
Ah, I see.
Halo's
okay.
actually kind of a black sheep among arena shooters, though.
Right.
It's slow-paced and slow time to kill.
Yeah.
Most arena shooters are really fast, where you're running around and jumping and shooting ridiculously powerful weapons at each other.
Like Doom. Doom 2016 is a perfect example. I played the crap out of that this weekend because they had a double XP weekend. It was actually free on Steam, and I'm assuming PSN and Xbox Live Gold. And it was weird because it felt a lot like playing Halo 1 because of just the way everything was. I mean, you move faster and your time to kill is quicker, but otherwise it's basically the same thing. It's which is obviously what Halo was aspiring to be. Like you said, it's an arena shooter that's very slow paced, and that's probably why it stood out, because it presented this sort of balanced start, everything's equal, but you have the ability to... there was someone in my school who explained it perfectly. I think he used the phrase, it makes it easier to shit on people. Like, they can come up from behind you, but you still have enough time to turn that gunfight around and win. Whereas in your typical arena shooter, I mean, they get the first shot on you, you're almost always going to die. And I don't know, I wish I could remember the phrase because it was funny, but it's also really true.
Yeah, I don't think any other shooter spends as much time trying to make everything balanced as the Halo series.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
think
Overwatch maybe, but that's relatively
well,
new.
that's a different one, because that's right. That's another one that we can get into, where you have basically a subset of the FPS.
Some shit.
Yeah, really, a subset of the FPS genre.
I kind of prefer shooters where you can the weapons you pick up determine what you are versus the class you choose. But I mean, like Battlefield is pretty fun, but overall, I like games like Halo more than class-based shooters.
Yeah, I feel yeah. It's and I mean I don't think anybody here is saying Overwatch is bad or is not fun or anything like that, because that's fundamentally not true. But I have to agree with you with that as well. With again, it's this concept of these balanced starts. Everybody starts out with the same guns, and from there you work towards, oh look, I'm gonna pick up the DMR or the sniper or the rocket launcher or the shotgun, and now okay, I'm a sniper. I'm going to hang back, but I'm only gonna be a sniper until I die. When I respawn, I might pick up a grenade launcher or something like that, and your role completely changes throughout the match. And I think that can make things more dynamic and can help to keep the game more exciting, because if you play something like Overwatch, most people are probably going to pick maybe 3 or 4 heroes that they play with, and then you're sort of suctioned into those roles.
And then you pretty much have a job
Right,
to do once
right.
you pick a character.
And I mean, we mostly play mystery heroes, but again, if we were actually playing like ranked matches, we would probably have, okay, I'm going to be Diva, and maybe 2 other people, Zarya or whoever, and then those are the people that I'm only ever going to play as. And you're, like you
Right.
said, it's basically a job, because you're only ever this role. You are only ever the tank. It's almost like playing like an MMORPG. Like, wow, I'm healing, whatever. And so I think it loses that dynamicness. But yeah, on the flip side, it does also mean that the person doing that's probably going to be more proficient than the average person, because you're under the assumption that they would have done it more. You have more experience because you're maining as that particular role, versus it being a much more dynamic sort of, can change, I mean, literally with every life.
That's pretty optimistic.
Well, I mean, in theory, that's what you would expect. Obviously, that's not going to be what occurs in practice, but there's nothing that would prevent that from being it, aside from, people's abilities to be stupid, which you should never underestimate.
No.
But I mean, again, we've talked about RPGs and FPSs. There's tons more genres. We haven't even talked about RTSs yet. Now, I actually think that RTS might be the most homogenous genre, because you don't have a lot of ability to, I guess, break the mold. I mean, you look at something like StarCraft. That's kind of that's really it. I can't even think of any other, really popular RTSs that even compete with it. I mean, there was Age of Empires, but oh, sorry.
What, like these days, you mean?
Yeah, like in the last several years, because didn't StarCraft 2 come out like 2010 or 2011? So I mean,
I feel like in the early 2000s there was a lot more RTSs. Now there are really few and far between.
I wonder if that's because of the rise of consoles sort of becoming the de facto way that most people play games, whereas before it would have been PC and console was kind of an afterthought.
RTS used to be a very popular genre to develop for PC, but now that consoles represent the vast majority of the market, they don't take RPGs that well. So RTSs.
Are we going to see a change then, because we have mobile games becoming a bigger and bigger market? I mean, to the point where it might actually be past consoles in terms of.
Sure, but they don't take RTS as well either.
No, I mean like the way console games are we going to see... I mean, I'm not trying to sound pessimistic like consoles are dying. In the same way PC gaming is not dying. Just are we going to see any massive shifts in sort of the way console games are versus what they were a decade ago? Although I guess we are seeing that with microtransactions, which is really popular on mobile games.
I don't know about that, because there are genres that were formerly only a PC that do work well on consoles, like shooters. But
thanks, Bungie.
What? Or Rare.
Yeah.
But what mobile game genres are? They're all like puzzle games or simple tactics games, stuff like that. They don't really work well on consoles.
Well, you can. I think I get what you're saying in that they're not going to become as a big a deal on console. But if you can do it on a phone, you can do it with a controller. I mean, even if it's touchscreen based, you just, you move the analog stick, or even a computer, you click the mouse. So I don't think we're going to have this huge shift in sort of the types of games we get. Because, again, if you can do it on a phone, you can do it on a console with minimal effort. Especially with, I mean, obviously there isn't the Windows Phone, but sort of with Microsoft making it, treating Xbox Live as a service as opposed to a product, with the unification of Windows and Xbox. Obviously they don't have a phone, but maybe we'll see, some kind of connection, I guess, where everything
I
is.
got a phone.
Huh?
I have a phone.
I mean, a phone that people give a shit about. Come on. Nobody cares about Windows Phone. There's no apps for it because nobody has it, and nobody has it because there's no apps.
They got 8% of the market.
Wow. And the other two have, that's pathetic. That's like Linux. Nobody cares about Linux. Actually, I don't think Linux has
They make
quite
games
8%.
for Linux.
Huh?
They make games for Linux.
Again, I'm not saying that there isn't any games available on Linux at all. What I'm saying is the amount of games available on Linux is so small you might as well not even bother talking about it. In the same way, the amount of Windows Phone users, they exist. There's more than one. But the amount is so small it's not even worth bothering mentioning. It's the same way, I guess I can't even think of another analogy. I think I made my point. So hopefully we won't see any kind of drastic change. Because I do kind of miss RTS games. I haven't really played a lot, but I've played some of the older ones. Age of Empires, Command and Conquer, stuff like that. And those are fun. I mean, some of them
I think it's sort of making a bit of a resurgence.
It does appear because...
medium budget games.
Yeah, and I think that's where... And that's sort of a problem with the game... oh my god, what's the term I'm looking for?
Community?
No, yes, thank you, industry. As a whole, where they seem to be really afraid of that middle tier, where they either want to have this huge, everything's got to be AAA budget, or it has to be one guy in a basement doing it for 2 years, making some tiny indie game like Minecraft or Terraria or Stardew Valley, where there's nothing in between, where it's okay. Maybe it's a single A budget, and you don't have as huge a marketing behind it, but you can take more risks. In fact, I think Ubisoft seems to do a pretty good job with this. You have Child of Light. What was the other one that they did that came out not too long ago that was really well received? Wasn't it Verdun or something like that?
Oh, yeah. No, Verdun's like a multiplayer shooter.
Was it? There's one I'm thinking of. It's like a World War I game, I think.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I
probably knowing the title would help make my point better, but I think you understand in that they're taking more risks. But I mean, these are very well received games. Child of Light got a ton of awards.
Was it Company of Heroes?
No. No, it wasn't Company of Heroes. So it's
not Ubisoft.
That came out.
No, it's not. We got off topic from game genres. Stupid RTS, because there's nothing to talk about in the genre because it's literally StarCraft right now. I can't even think of another one that's had a game come out in the last few years in terms of RTS. But then obviously you have the turn-based ones, which...
Turn-based ones are better right now, but I just wish they would make an RTS that had a bigger scale of what you control and what you do.
Well, see, I think that comes...
Total War?
Yeah, because I think...
What?
Total War is a perfect example of that. Those are fun. I've enjoyed. I have Shogun 2 and Empire Total War. Those are probably the two, at least from what I've read, two of the weaker ones. But I've enjoyed them. But I think what happened is you had StarCraft come out in the 90s, and what it was is the matches are much quicker, and it's like Zach mentioned, where it's just all about action and doing stuff, all the time.
Like Age of Empires 3, I thought they simplified the economics of it way too much between that and Age of Empires 2. And I couldn't get behind it. I didn't like it.
And again, I think that has to do with sort of what happened with StarCraft, where it became... I mean, that was just the thing. And, I mean, look at what shooters did from Halo. You can only carry 2 weapons. You have this... I'm trying to think of what... Dang it.
Regenerating health.
Yes, thank you, Jesus. Oh my God. I swear to God I'm not on any kind of drugs or anything. It's just... But really, yes, regenerating health.
Some Adderall.
Right, well, but that's invaded to other things too, like even going from Oblivion to Skyrim, regenerating health. I think it's just so
I
pervasive.
think you misheard me. I said you should be on some Adderall.
Why should I be on some Adderall?
Focus.
It's not that I'm not focused. I can't think of the words that I want to say. I don't think that's a lack of focus. It's a lack of my brain making the connections between what I wanted, the idea, and what we use
The
to
point.
communicate the idea, which is the English language, the best language. It's the biggest language, the best.
It is the biggest.
You know what other genres kind of not so popular now is fighting games too, because there's only like 2 big ones a year, I think.
But I think they're starting to make a comeback. I really think they are, because I mean, Killer Instinct is quite good. I've enjoyed playing that. I lose all the time. I don't know why I lose. Most of the time when I play, I just kind of set the controller down because they're just constantly comboing me and I can't attack. But it's still fun. Somehow it's still fun. We had 2 Injustice games come out in the last 5 years. There's a Marvel vs. Capcom that's coming out here soon. And then you have a Street Fighter that is it Street Fighter?
Tekken.
Yeah, and then Tekken 2 just had another one. So I think they're making a comeback. I don't think it'll ever be like as big as it would have been when it was in arcades. But I definitely think because now you can do it where I think at this point online is good enough to where it can almost simulate it being next to each other. I mean, it's never going to be exactly the same, but for most of your users, they're not going to be able to tell 1 or 2 frames being missed because now you have...
That might be why it kind of tampered off, is just because, I mean, you lag a fraction of a second. You could lose your string of attacks to your opponent.
Oh, they time
I
frames.
would want to deal with that if I'm pro.
They time frames, so you have to have it where your connection to the person is within 1 or 2 frames. And I think now, at least in the developed world, we have that where, okay, there's enough people that might own this game within, I don't know how many mile radius it'd have to be roughly, that you can have an enjoyable match and that they'll be roughly equal to your skill and to the point where lag is not going to be a huge factor in determining, who wins. And I think part of the reason they died out is, one, it's much less casual than other genres tend to be. Same thing with probably RTSs as well. It's much more hardcore. And with the rise of playing online, you had it where, okay, the infrastructure wasn't there. I mean, the PlayStation 2, I don't even know if there was any kind of PSN network. I think you just connected directly through the game. And that was dial-up as well. Obviously, with the Xbox One, it was...
And it was an add-on piece of hardware.
Right, yes. I remember when I bought it, and I think I played
Tony Hawk's Underground with it.
I tried to play Madden, and you would think that maybe football would be okay. It's not. It's really not. It was bad. In fact, that might be why I kind of died out from Madden, because I used to buy that every year.
I had a GameCube.
Yeah, I played the shit out of Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur 2.
That was not mine.
So you guys were just playing against each other?
Yeah.
Who won?
There were other people.
I was
who?
Link, so I kept throwing my enemies off the map.
Wait, Andrew, who else would you play against besides Zach? I don't think your parents would.
No, we family friends, stuff like that.
Well, you have other friends?
Remember
yeah.
Yeah.
Did he win too? Because he's really good.
He was good.
He was good.
If Andrew says someone's good at a game, they're great. Oh man.
I wasn't much better than a button masher at Soul Calibur.
That's kind of how I feel with Kill Instinct. But Paul's gonna talk.
Oh my god! Don't get your hopes up. It's not gonna be that good. No, I was just thinking. I think that's some of the reason why those games, like fighter games, aren't super popular, because you do have to play the game a lot, memorize a lot of button combos. Otherwise, it is just button mashing.
And that's exactly
so
it.
It takes work.
Yes,
You're either
it's
MLG or you suck at a fighting.
no, that really is. That's exactly true. I think more than any other genre, it's completely. I don't know what they can do to make it to where it's easy to play but hard to master. I think first-person shooters have gotten that down with varying degrees of aim assist.
They can't make a fighting game in depth and do that. I don't think it would
So-
have to be very simple. To
So,
work.
Yeah.
but something like Smash
Like
Bros.
Super
seems
Smash
to do
Bros,
it.
yeah.
But
But that's not really a fighting game. That's like a platformer
Well, and
action
out-
party
all-
masher.
Like every character, their combos are the same buttons. Just obviously they do different things, but the buttons are
well,
the same
it's
for every
up B
character.
over A. It's just all that.
It's
well, see, like Killer
directional
Instinct
A,
did that.
directional B.
See, Killer Instinct did that, in that you have, I don't know what the exact types are. I mean, I can pull up a list, but there's like long, medium, and short, and then fast, slow, and really slow, but they do more damage. And that's the same button for each character. Now, the exact attack and the exact frames and damage and things like that are going to be different. But okay, so that guy's really far away in a fighting game, is maybe a foot. So you have to do your long range attack. It's the same button for every character. Now, again, they're going to behave slightly differently, but what you'd want to do is the same. In the same thing with a shooter, they're really far away. I'd like to have a long range gun, not a shotgun. Something like that. Having to get really, really meta with it. And I think that's part of the reason why I've been able to enjoy Killer Instinct, despite the fact that I'm god awful at it, because at least I know, okay, maybe I should have pressed this button because his attack came in faster, and that allowed him or her to build up the combo. And then I just kind of set my controller down and wait until the beating's done. I feel like some kind of abused housewife.
Are you supposed to combo breaker?
Well, see, and that you can. The problem is, one, if I'm not mistaken, to combo breaker, I haven't done enough to know what buttons to press. You have to press one button. There's a specific like comboing breaking button, I think, and then the button for their attack. And you can do that and fail like 2 times, and then the third time you do it, if you fail, you're locked out, and then they get to do their whole combo, and you just have to sit there and take it. So yes, you can combo breaker, and obviously if I played the game more and was better at it, I'd be able to determine, okay, what's their most likely attack here. But it's not like something you can always do. There's not always going to be a way for you to guess what attacks they're going to be using. On top of that, you also want to get your attack in, because if your attack is quicker than theirs, you will break the combo as well. So it's kind of, again, it's just something about fighting games. It makes them very, very hard to make them casual. The first game to do that is going to be stupidly popular. But until that occurs, it's kind of going to be left in sort of the smaller, super competitive market. Kind of like what we're seeing with what happened with RTSs, where they're not huge, but the people that play them are very dedicated to them, and it's hard to get in because the communities tend to get toxic when that occurs, because if you're not good, they're going to just shit on you and make fun of you, and it makes it hard for you as a person to want to keep playing if you're just going to be constantly belittled. Maybe we should work on a fighting game that's casual friendly.
That sounds
make
like a 6-year project
Hey,
of hard work.
Yeah.
but I mean, you don't need to have a lot of. I mean, I'm not. It's not like you need 50 or 60 fighters. You wouldn't need that kind of variety.
You know what the fighting game I liked? Really simple fighting game. It's Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good.
But did that have any kind of multiplayer, component to it?
Maybe.
Yeah, it was a fighting game.
Well, I don't know.
They could do verses, yeah.
Oh.
Local verses.
I wonder why fighting games don't seem to be big on sort of story campaign modes. Is it just because of that competitive nature that kind of...
It's just, what can you really do when you're just 1v1? It'd be a cutscene fight. It's just not that intuitive of a story.
That's Dragon Ball, and that shit went on for 2 decades. It's
So
still
Dragon
going
Ball
on.
can work.
Well, why
most
don't
fighting games do have a story.
But what I mean is, you don't ever. I mean, they don't seem to be as big. I mean, I shouldn't say everybody, but I'm sure a vast majority of people who play games on a daily basis at least understand sort of the basics of Halo's story and lore. Is same thing with the Elder Scrolls. The same thing with kind of. Well, I guess Battlefield doesn't really. I'm trying to think of some other big ones. StarCraft. People would at least have the basics of these games. Why is it that there isn't a fighting game that's just ubiquitous when it comes to its plot, its lore? And again, I think it's just because
That
of
is a good question.
It is a good question. That's why I
It's
asked.
probably
it.
just because we haven't played it much.
But I mean, is it? I mean, what it's? I mean, how long can you make the story? I mean, you think about something like Halo. I mean, I guess how do you develop a character that fights without just increasing his power level to over 9,000? You know, I mean, what do you do? He's fighting. Does he learn to not fight? Is this like the Karate Kid? That's already been done.
I know they usually have really bizarre stories with like secret organizations and genetic experiments and.
Isn't there one where they
ancient
have like a
magics.
tournament on an island all the time? So I guess maybe I was wrong, because now I'm thinking of that.
Well, Mortal Kombat's like a netherworld sort of thing, where there's a tournament.
Because I could have swore there's one where like someone hosts a tournament on an island and then shit goes wrong. Maybe.
Maybe
See,
think of the Mortal Kombat movie.
yeah, I don't think I've seen it though. I'm pretty sure I haven't sat through that. God help me if I have, and thank you for making me forget if I did.
What?
Seeing
It just
through that,
reminded you.
huh?
It just reminded you.
I said I probably haven't seen it. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure, because I think I would remember something that bad if I'd actually watched it, sat down and watched it.
Oh, I'm sure it's sort of like the Mario movie. She's good.
Hey, Paul, you didn't tell us what your favorite genre is.
He said RPGs.
Did he?
Yeah,
Yeah, after I
RPGs
said it, he said
are.
that's what I was gonna say. Remember? And then
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
No, because I really like Kingdom Hearts, obviously.
So it's
and-
JRPG then. So how come you hate
but then,
anime?
like top down, like Stardew. Really like Stardew.
But is that I mean, that's a different genre though, not top down. That's
Is it?
Well, I guess what's the genre
Isn't it
like?
a top down RPG?
No, it's not an RPG.
Yeah, it is.
Top.
It's just
See,
Yeah,
this
I'll
is
look it
this
up.
is what we're talking about. This is I don't even think that'd be called an RPG, like at all.
yeah, it would be. It's like started out as like the old Harvest Moon games
Yeah, but
or
those.
the new ones, but yeah, they're an RPG. They're just a simple
Simulation role playing.
I mean, I
Yeah.
guess that would work, but I don't
SR.
feel like there's a lot of. I don't know.
Yeah.
But see, this is what the discussion is about. Is I mean, how varied can a genre be before it's something else?
But what about all the genre synergies that are coming up, like shooter RPG and sandbox?
And
Sandbox,
open
I
world.
think, is by itself.
Arc kind of.
Well,
Well-
and Minecraft.
survival. you mean.
Yeah, survival games are huge because it's really easy to. You actually don't have to make a lot of shit for there to be a lot of content. I mean, think about how much people played Minecraft, and all you could there was 50 or 60 block types, if that, and that's it. I mean, that's and it's procedurally generated. I mean, I'm not saying that the game's easy to make, but the amount of work that goes into that versus something like a Battlefield or Halo is, I mean, orders of magnitude less.
The thing with survival games, it's a genre people want to play, but no one's really finished a game yet.
That's another thing I was gonna say is no one's ever sort of completed it. Like, and we'll see. Maybe Arc will, because Microsoft seems to have kind of. I mean, they got the Play Anywhere aspect, but I think Microsoft is kind of helping them, so to speak, to actually get to where it's completed. And then we'll see, because I mean the game runs like ass. I mean, it really does. And so instead of adding new stuff, I really hope that they start.
At least when you're
focusing-
hosting a server and playing at the same time.
But for you guys, I'm assuming it runs pretty bad as well. I mean, the plant popping and stuff like that has got to be atrocious.
It's not that bad. I never see floating heads and shit that you see.
But that I don't think is an optimization. That's just some kind of bug with the. Because again, when you took the stuff off and put it
When
back
you're on
on,
the server and you're
yeah, I
hosting
wonder.
and playing on it.
But I mean,
at
you
the
guys
same
don't ever
time.
have it where like it freezes for like half a second.
Every now and then.
Okay, well that's kind of bad. if you're playing a
And
game.
Since we've been playing it lately, like maybe the first 2 times, I only had like texture pop problems when you would first log in. But this last time we played, it was like every 5 minutes, textures would have to like reload and everything.
Seeing it has something to do with the areas we were in.
It might,
Yeah,
but
Areas, though, isn't that why?
it shouldn't matter. The game shouldn't be doing that. That's the point I'm
it's still
trying to
in
make.
early access.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like maybe when they get it finished, it can be to this point where it runs because you need a boss ass computer to run it where it's playable. I mean, you need a beast to get it to the point where you're able to play it with stable frame rates, and PC Master Race gotta be 60 FPS. But even taking that out of the equation, it's it takes some work. And we'll see. Like I said, with Microsoft, that can help them sort of make it run much more better. Because I do think it would be a fun game. There's a lot of stuff there. I mean, just like Angel said, it's a game everybody would like to play, but there isn't a finished one out there yet.
Mm-hmm.
For people to actually get to enjoy. And I think that's a good point where we'll see what happens with this or if something else. Because there's a couple other ones out there that maybe because Subnautica, right? Am I thinking of the right game?
I don't know.
Dang it. Because there's a lot of potential in there. And again, it probably doesn't require quite as much work because as some other games, so we'll see if maybe someone's eventually able to turn that around. But again, that's a whole new game genre. I don't even know if that existed 10 years ago.
Wow. Not really.
Survival.
Yeah, I'm
Survival sandbox.
But I mean,
Well, even sandbox is fairly new.
and then that's a whole nother one because that's sort of I've never even really thought of that as a genre. I've always thought of that as sort of like a describer, basically. Like Grand Theft Auto is a sandbox, but
Modifier, maybe?
yeah, that's a better term. Because Grand Theft Auto is a sandbox, but you could also make the argument that Elder Scrolls is as well. What do they share in common besides the fact that it's an open world? Not a whole lot. It's the problem with
One
genres.
has hissed, the other has heist.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a bit more nuanced than that, but it's the right idea. And I think this is sort of what happens with genres, and this isn't just inherent to games. I mean, it happens with books, it happens with movies, it happens with music. It's people want to know within 2 or 3 words what a particular thing is like, and that's impossible to do. There's no way for you to describe something as complex as a video game in 3 or 4 words. It can't be done. You can help narrow it down, but it's never going to be a perfect sort of...
Well, I know, there's some games. Like Cow Clicker.
So, if No Man's Sky was actually successful, do you think that would have opened up a window to like an exploration type of genre?
Well, that's different than survival. I can see what you're saying, but I think the core mechanics of the game are similar enough to where I don't know if they would be considered different. And that's something I've always tried to, when I talk about a game or think about a game, is what are the core mechanics? Sort of what is it that you as the player are supposed to do? And then that determines to me sort of what type of game it is, not something else. Because first-person shooter, you shoot people. Simple. That's what the people who made the game want me to do. They want me to point my gun at something, pull whatever button makes a gun go off, make that thing be dead. Role players want me to make choices. Almost always am I going to get to create my character, but not necessarily. And have a world that I can explore that I might not necessarily see everything in based on the choices sort of that I've made. You get to play a role. So I think with the mechanics of something like No Man's Sky being about exploring, and you have something like survival, it's basically the same thing in that you want to gather resources to sort of expand. And I think that's the core mechanic. So to me, they would be, to me anyways, I would call them basically the same genre. But obviously I can understand someone else going, well, that's a survival game, that's an exploration game. They're totally different, dude, and you're dumb.
I don't really see that distinction can be made.
What distinction?
Because obviously if you're exploring, you want to explore for some reason.
Can't you just explore because you like to explore? I've never had a problem with doing
No.
that.
But then you're just
No.
wasting your time.
They're fucking video games. What do you think they are? They're a form of
You gotta find
entertainment.
stuff.
Huh?
You explore to find something.
Okay. I guess that's okay. That's good. So survival game then. I mean, what you want to?
Survival game, you're exploring to find stuff you need to survive.
So I guess maybe they are more similar than I thought. Why do you gotta prove me wrong? All right, I was wrong.
I mean, like shooter, you could explore, but say, what are you looking for? You're
You
looking
got
for,
your gun. You're gonna get ammo. That's
if
it.
you're looking for different weapons or maybe different routes you can take.
I'm looking for the
Something
end
that
of the
helps you
game.
achieve your objective.
All right, stop. All right. You made your point. I was wrong. But I think the problem with No Man's Sky is, and it's mostly on the developers and marketers. Sean Murray specifically, fuck that guy, for real, fuck that guy. And some of it's also on the players, the people who bought into the hype, because in this day and age, with the access to information that we have, there is at no point should you not have at least a good to, if not great, understanding of any particular thing, assuming you care enough to look into it. I originally wasn't going to buy Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2. But then I saw some stuff on it. I did a little bit of research. I decided that's a game I'm going to play. Because we have so much more information now, no one should have gone into No Man's Sky and not know exactly what it is. That's your fault not knowing exactly what that game was. Yes, that's fine that you bought into the trailers. Yes, that's fine that you were excited. But to then get mad that all this shit that's literally impossible for that to actually happen didn't happen, I don't know if you have the right to get mad. I mean, again, it's...
Well, yeah, all these games that just kind of come out of nowhere and they think they're going to be revolutionary, I wait at least a month on all of them.
Oh, yeah.
How the reviews look, watch some gameplay. I don't buy anything day one unless it's like a new Halo or a new Elder Scrolls.
Right.
Something that I know
And-
is going to be great.
And this is something I think maybe we can talk about in the next one when it comes to franchises and sort of why those seem to be such a big deal versus new stuff. And that this wouldn't just be particular to games. This is something that would be true for all medias of entertainment. But that's actually a great thing to talk about next week, because that's a whole podcast, maybe even two, in itself that I don't want to try to cram in the last 10 minutes or so that we got here.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, it's something where, like you said, that's a perfect example where you have these things that sort of overpromise. But No Man's Sky took it to a whole new level. I mean, really, it did. I was excited to it, and then they just kept doing stuff, and it's like, there's no way. There's no way that this is going to be possible. And I'm glad I waited. I mean, granted, I don't have a PS4, so I've only been able to play it on PC. But I'm glad I've waited, because one, it saved me $30 or $60, however much I would have been willing to pay. But it also saved me a bunch of time as well.
Well, and just feeling disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that can't be overstated as well. I just have to, shoot something in Halo or whatever. That's usually how I get over my upsetness at something. Now it's Doom. I'm enjoying the shit out of Doom. And that's actually
Rip
probably...
and tear.
Huh?
Rip and tear.
See, I think, because with Doom, and maybe this
It
is
was very cathartic.
Well, and I think this is sort of like, I want to call like an old school first person shooter. Sort of, again, now we're the subset of the first person shooters where you don't have this regenerating health, so it's pre-Halo. And sort of the way the gun plays is much more fast paced. I mean, I guess Wolfenstein didn't do it, but they both feel like older games. And I wonder if we're going to see a resurgence in that, okay, no more regenerating health, no more extraneous shit. Just here's a game, shoot some bad guys, and that's it, and some cool guns, and nothing sort of extra. I wonder if we'll get
I
more.
doubt it.
Well, I guess Doom did have some extra stuff in it as well. I mean, you got all the stuff to find. So, well, but I mean, just when it comes to the gameplay is very much a very simple, kind of core mechanic. because both those games were great. But to me, that's almost a different genre. I guess I don't like to call it old school because obviously that's like the original first-person shooter. But since regenerating health and everything else Halo did is just become so ubiquitous that it's kind of a great point to say, okay, this is where things changed. Everything after is this, everything before is this, and it works for everything. What is the dog saying, Paul?
I don't know.
He's probably
I don't
wrong.
know why he's barking.
Why don't you tell him how his view on something is wrong, Age? You make him feel bad too.
Well, the retro style shooters. There's been a few that are come out recently that have been quite popular, but they're all revivals of old franchises.
Yes, that's very true. That's a really good point.
Again, reviving
I could think of-
franchises. We could almost talk about that.
Yeah, that'll have to be for next week. Because that doesn't just pertain to games. That's movies, books, everything. And I think it's getting really bad with the movie industry now, but we'll see.
They're almost out of 80s movies, though.
They moved on to 90s
moved on to
movies with
90s.
Power Rangers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Well, and now at least Disney anyway, they make their live action remakes of cartoons. They're going on
Yeah,
that
but those are good,
hard.
The
mostly.
live
Yeah.
action, all animated Lion King remake.
Yep. There's no humans in that at all. But there will be a Seth Rogen.
So, with game genres, what do you think sort of is the best representation of a couple of genres? Like, what game do you think best epitomizes what this type of game is supposed to be?
Well, for shooters, Halo and I hate to say it, COD are probably the big two that everybody thinks of first.
But I don't mean popular. I mean when if someone comes up to you and just whispered in your ear, first person shooter, what would pop into your head?
Well, what really shaped it? You mean, or
No, I mean like what if you were trying to explain to someone that's never seen a video game before? What
well, then
if
you would
I
just say
think
COD.
Halo.
You'd say
Call of
COD.
Duty for real?
I say Halo, just because you see the Master Chief on all this marketing, you don't see any COD character really. So I feel like he's
Captain
the
Price.
face of first-person shooter. Yeah. Well,
But again, he's nowhere near as big as Halo. So what about something like an RPG then? What one game do you feel gets that genre and this is what all RPGs should aspire to be like?
Mario and Luigi RPG.
Really?
No. No.
Probably Skyrim.
Skyrim?
Hell yeah.
Skyrim is bigger than Oblivion.
It is. It to me, I think Oblivion might be the best game, just because there's a lot of funny, tricky things that you can do with it. I mean, the duplication glitch, the floating paintbrush glitch, all kinds of.
What do we do? 100K watermelons or something
Oh,
like that?
I built
We
a
broke
bridge
the
with
game.
apples in Lake Rumere, so I literally broke. I think that's part of the reason why I had to get my Xbox fixed was because of that little stunt that I pulled. I actually think I might have a save on the 360 where I can spawn like 2,000 of something, and I'm sure it would crash it.
Well,
But-
that one guy gave you that scroll that had no weight, so I just duplicated that to use the glitch. It was summon his ghost, the guy you killed with the Blade of Woe.
Yeah.
The
So-
fact that I remember that specific.
I know. I think I was saying this earlier. I think something between like 2000 and probably 6 to like 2009, maybe 2010 was sort of like the pinnacle of gaming. It feels like because you had so many great games that came out. You had obviously Oblivion. You had 2 Halos. You had probably 2 of the best Halos. I mean, I guess you can throw in Halo 2 as being great as well. You had Mass Effect, which is fantastic. What else were some big ones?
Mass Effect's a good quintessential RPG.
Is it? You don't think it's got sort of too
The
much?
quintessential action RPG.
Okay. So you're thinking action RPG and RPG are separate?
Well,
For
it's more
sure.
of like
Although I guess most of people action RPG
Describing.
used to mean Diablo.
Yeah,
What about
that's
something like Far Cry? What would you consider that?
see again. This is exactly what this
An
is.
open world RPG.
But is it an
FPS.
RPG?
Art.
What about Primal? That's not a shooter.
No, but it's got, you know.
First person poker.
Well, I mean, you can use a bow and arrow, so
That
there
was
is
Far
that.
Cry 3 at the end.
Yeah.
You mean the sex scene?
No, you played poker with that guy at the
Oh.
end.
It's first person shooter.
Well, see, that's what. But again, we're not talking about what label's been ascribed to it by other people. We're talking about what really should it be. But I think for Primal, I mean, you're right. You're not actually shooting stuff, but I mean, you can call it first person.
Are you harming things?
Yes, you're doing
A
damage.
first-person
Then-
armor.
But you can.
Yeah.
But you can throw spears. You can shoot the bow and
Yeah.
arrow. I
You
mean,
sh-
it's
Oh, shoot the bow and arrow.
You can
Yeah.
throw everything.
Sounds like an
yeah.
FPS.
So I guess you can call it
You can't throw your bow.
no, but you can throw
Oh, no.
arrows
With the bow.
with the bow. So yeah, it's.
But anyway, Skyrim is the RPG phase. Yes.
So what about? I guess we already did RTS with StarCraft 2, probably. I guess
Definitely.
just StarCraft. So I guess what's another team-based shooter? I guess would that be that's
Halo.
team-based,
Overwatch. Oh, team-based? Not... Okay.
like
Counter-Strike.
class-based, I guess.
Oh, well then,
Oh.
yeah,
So-
Overwatch.
Overwatch.
Class based?
Yeah.
Not Team Fortress?
Well,
It's old. I mean,
but again, it
I
doesn't
don't
matter
think
how
about
old
it
it is. I mean, your quintessential FPS could be GoldenEye. I mean, this isn't like it has to
Oh,
be
hell yeah.
modern.
I think that's your couch co-op base.
Well, but couch co-op's not a genre. But again, to me that would be a better description of a game than something else because
Yeah, that's true.
you know it tells me what I can do with a game. But and again, it's genre trying to describe a genre to something. I think
How about the cover based shooter?
Gears of War.
Obviously.
Isn't that the only one?
no,
No,
I guess
like,
Rainbow Six plays kind of like that cover shooter.
it
Not
does.
really.
Well, I mean, it's got more tactical
new one.
element, but the
What
older
about,
ones kind of did.
Solid. Metal Gear.
That's no,
Stealth
that's
game.
Isn't that
That's-
like a gadget shooter?
that's JRP. That's
No,
not
that's
JRPG. I meant to say
stealth action
Japanese fuckery. Yeah, I've played the fifth one, part of it, and I don't even know what happened in the part I've played. So
game. Personally, I think Splinter Cell is more
yeah,
like
probably.
the pre-conviction Splinter Cells are the quintessential
Double Agent. was-
third-person action game.
I think
No.
with Metal Gear, it got too sort of convoluted and self-absorbed in its own story. I mean, Phantom Pain plays great, probably one of the most fun games to play. But otherwise, I think it's way more focused on it's. I think Hideo Kojima really wishes he was a director, and that's fine. But you're making a game, not a movie.
How does it Metal Gear Solid 4 with like a 1-to-1 cutscene to gameplay ratio?
So the last
Jeez.
part of the game is literally an hour and a half long cutscene. I mean, not for real. It's an hour and a half long cutscene.
So there is a movie within the game at the end.
There's several movies within the game.
So it's like a 2-for-1.
I guess you could call it that. If you want to think positive. What you mean, it's fine, that's great, because I mean, the camera work and what I've seen in Phantom Pain is amazing. I wish I could see a Hideo Kojima movie or series or TV show. Just, unfortunately it won't happen for whatever reason.
You
What
run
about
Hideo?
turn-based strategy?
Turn-based? Probably Civilization. I mean, I think that's...
I mean, that's
I was gonna
4X.
That and Age of Wonders are the only big ones, really, I think.
Civ
Those
is...
are 4X.
Okay, what's a turn-based one?
Turn-based strategy, like Nintendo Wars or
Of course, Nintendo.
here in America known as Advance Wars. Fire Emblem.
Oh, that. Then
Well, I mean, Nintendo Wars is older than the Advance Wars game, so
I kind of hope they make a new Advance Wars soon, or Battalion Wars for the Switch. That'd be cool
sure, yeah.
if they did it good. I like that second one.
Chess. That's turn-based strategy.
Ah! See, that's good. I'm glad you picked something that wasn't a video game, just to kind of highlight how this isn't just about video games. And when we happen to pick video games to talk about this, but you could apply this concept to anything else. I mean, think about movies. Okay, well, that's science fiction. Well, yes, but there's more to it than that. I mean, think of Star Wars is kind of space opera, not true science fiction. But
So
what?
if we're doing board games, is Monopoly or Smash the face of destroyed, ruined friendships?
Probably Smash, because I think Monopoly just you're so pissed off for so long you're not angry when it's over. But Smash,
There's this. How about Mario Party?
I've never played it, so I can't really
Me
comment.
neither.
Mario Party's like total BS.
It's all random.
Isn't there like a pretty famous GIF where the person playing Luigi just doesn't move and he wins the little mini game just by not doing anything?
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah,
can
that's
see
just because
that.
one person rolled off for no reason. But yeah, that was the Mario Party 2 game, I think. Also, there's this Nintendo game called Fortune Street.
What is it with you and
Which is
Nintendo
like-
games?
I watched it, Chugga Connery.
Oh yeah, him.
Anyway, it's called Fortune Street. It's like Mario Party mixed with Monopoly, plus a stock market.
Plus a stock market. Like, yeah. Just throw that in there. Let's see what happens.
Huh.
Good friends to destroy that one.
Destroy friendships with all your corporate friends.
So do you think that that should be a genre, is destroying friendships? Because again, that's,
No, that's how you describe a game.
Button mashing friendship destroyer.
So yeah, obviously, I mean, game genres, again, it's to me, it's always been sort of how to supply a decent amount of information to someone in just a few words. But I don't think it should kind of be treated as like this be-all, end-all, this is what the game has to be. And I think sometimes game developers kind of get caught up in that, and they sort of decide, okay, this is a game of X, so it must have, these mechanics. And
And they shouldn't do that, because that's how games are set apart, is when you come up with the new innovative style that hasn't been put into a game before.
well, I think that might be something
it's-
that we want to save for next week, because we'll do franchises and new IPs, and that's going to be a
Yeah.
huge... that might have to be a two-parter now that I think about it. Because
Good
it's...
Here's my closing thought, I think. Good developers let other people decide what genre their game is.
Yes, that's actually almost verbatim what I was going to say. That's exactly right.
Me
They make
too,
the
yeah.
game, and whatever it is, that's what it is. And we talked about subgenres of genres and side genres. It's a mess because
You go
people
really deep if you want to make subgenres.
because people are so attached to attaching a label to something that they'll just make some bullshit up and say that's what this is, just to have a label on it. I mean, when's the last time that you ever browsed for a game or a movie and it didn't list action or sci-fi or RPG on it? It's not possible. It's just so ubiquitous that people will come up with whatever garbage they think they need to say, I got a label attached to it, so everything is fine. But yeah, I think Andrew made a perfect point in that developers make the game, everybody else decides what kind of game it is. They just care that it's good.
Right.
And I think that's true, and I actually think that's probably a great way to close it. Way to go, Andrew. Thumbs up all around. So next week, honestly, I think we might have to do a two-parter, and maybe we can do them at the same time and just kind of split it, where we talk about franchises, new IPs, stuff like that. Because I think that's another big thing as well. Especially, that's going to be more movie-focused, but it's starting to hit games as well. So I've been...
Starting.
Well, within the last few years, because gaming is still fairly new. I don't really think it became mainstream probably until last generation. So it's been a normal thing to do now, for what, maybe 10 years? If that, that's new compared to everything else. How old is music? Millennia. How old are movies? Over a century. How old are books? Centuries. So it's much newer than the other, pieces of entertainment.
Books are millennial as well.
I guess I was thinking about when it became the point where a common person could own them and use them, but yeah. So that's something to look forward to for the next podcast. That's going to be a big one, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've been Whoosh.
And Paul.
And Zach.
And Andrew.
And thank you for listening to us ramble about stuff that you might not care about, but we do. See ya.